Hey everybody, welcome to my couch for episode 22, I think. I hope you guys are doing well. Did you get your Spotify numbers? If you don't know what I mean, first of all, I'm shocked and envious of the life you live that is somewhat detached from social media. Second of all, Spotify numbers are, at the end of the year, Spotify does two things. One that I love and one that I hate. The thing they do that I love is that they give listeners a very detailed breakdown of how they spent their year musically. What they listened to, what kind of music they listened to the most, what their favorite song was, all this kind of stuff. And then people share that, and it's a very fun way to kind of spread the word on what you like, which I'm a big fan of, and on what could be new music for a lot of people, which I'm also a big fan of. I will occasionally be fortunate enough to find something new in people's Spotify year-end thing. The thing Spotify does that I hate is they give artists that same detailed breakdown of like, here's how many people listen to your music, here's where they live, here's their age and their gender, here's how many minutes people listen to your music this year. And then understandably, people that are pleased with those numbers share them. But I feel like it sort of engages us all in, if not competition, at least this sort of comparing and contrasting that, for my money, does not have a place in art or in a content, satisfying life. I heard a comedian on a podcast last night who was quoting someone else, just said, compare to despair, saying like, if you live a life where you're trying to match up your stuff with other people's stuff and your life with other lives, it can only lead to despair and the blues. But then I started thinking about the fact that Spotify does that all year round. I was talking to my wife on our walk, and I was saying, there isn't, if you go to Spotify and you listen to a song, it'll say how many times that song has been played. And I was thinking, there's no reason for that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if some people, when they're booking bands, they want to know, like, well, how often does your music get played? Because we want to know how popular your stuff is if we're going to book you here. And if Spotify can have artist pages and listener pages, they could have venue accounts too, where you get to see those numbers. But like, the average person thinking about listening to a song does not need to know that it's been played 1 billion times or that it's only been played 5 times. And I do feel like it's about this competition. Because of course, if you can get the artists to feel competitive, they will want to boost those numbers. And the only way to boost those numbers is to promote Spotify. And I'm not against promoting Spotify. In fact, I take a somewhat controversial stance on Spotify. The other thing that happens this time of year is all these artists start I don't want to say going off or ranting or anything with a negative connotation. They just start talking a lot about how Spotify doesn't pay us fairly. Spotify rips us off. Spotify is unfair. They don't give us what we deserve. And that is true for some people. It is not true for me. And it's not true for a handful of the people that I've seen talking like that. It's true for Beyonce. Beyonce, she's bringing a ton of money to Spotify, and she's not getting her fair share of it. Now, is that Spotify's fault? Is that the record label's fault? Is it the fault of a industry that historically doesn't pay artists well? The creative person always gets the last piece of the pie. That's just a fact. But for me, in my relationship with Spotify is much more beneficial to me than it is to Spotify. And I think sometimes about like, what would I be willing to pay for if they charged for this service? I would pay for it. If a company came to me and said, hey, we have this app, and if you pay us X amount of dollars a month, we'll put your music on the app, and it'll just be on everybody's phone right now, right next to Jackson Browne and Graham Parsons will be your stuff. So anybody on the planet that you meet, you could say, oh yeah, I'm a musician. If you want to hear it, take your phone out. It's on there. You know, I would pay for that, and I don't have to pay for that. And that seems fair to me. A lot of people think it's wrong, but you know what? A lot of people have a lot of problems with how I'm doing this. There's people that really don't like that my music is free, for example. And there's people that really don't like that there's this other thing in music that like you should never play for free. You should never play for exposure. And I'm going like, well, you know, Springsteen did it. You know, you don't get paid to play the Super Bowl halftime show. And in fact, it costs a lot of money because I think you have to get yourself there. But the whole world sees you and your album sales go through the roof. And, you know, I didn't start doing this because I was hoping there would be a lot of rules. And I surely didn't start doing this because I wanted other people to tell me what to do. And there's this gem of advice that I heard a long time ago that said, you shouldn't take advice from people that are in a situation that you don't want to be in. You know, best case scenario, people can give you advice that will get you right to where they are. But the people that are where I'm at talk all the time about paying their dues and playing for free and just getting their music everywhere they can get it, and how grateful they are for Spotify. You know, there are a handful of independent artists that are wildly successful and making great livings and putting out great art that will tell you like Spotify is great. You know, I wish people still paid for music, and a lot of people do. But at the end of the day, the point is to get people to listen to your music, and Spotify is a huge help. Except for, like I said, this thing that no one talks about, where I do feel like it's putting us all in this Thunderdome of like, because I wish I didn't, and I'm not proud to say it, but I guess the new theme of this podcast is that I say stuff that's embarrassing that I shouldn't say out loud. But I see friends of mine, and I'm immediately happy for them that like, man, those numbers are huge. Good for him. Good for her. Good for them. But immediately after that, it's like, but good Lord, compare that to my numbers. My numbers are terrible. And I think part of that is that my audience is smaller. I think part of that is that I haven't been able to travel this year. And I think part of that is that people listen to my music elsewhere. I put stuff out on Bandcamp and people buy it. And I'm thankful for that. But if you buy something on Bandcamp, you're not going to then go listen to it on Spotify. And, you know, it is what it is. But I still feel this immediate, like, they did better than me. I did worse than them. You know, I'm failing and they're succeeding. And the more I think about why Spotify does that, the more I'm settled on, they want us to feel competitive so that we will spend more time trying to get people to listen to our stuff on Spotify, which is good for Spotify. Especially in a world where, like, Taylor Swift ain't going to do that. Taylor Swift is not going to take to the streets and go like, please check out my stuff on Spotify. Like, she doesn't care. By the way, this is neither here nor there, and I'm not trying to start anything with T Swift. I think mostly it's fine. You know, I don't listen to her music, and she seems very nice, and she's done a couple things I thought were really neat. But she made this big to-do of her new record. The only place to get an autographed copy of the CD is at independent record stores. And people were so excited because she's supporting independent record stores, and that's great. But I've seen several pictures of these CDs, and the signature never looks the same. And I'm not saying, my signature probably varies. I'm just saying, if I had to guess, and my two options were A, Taylor Swift signs her name differently every time, or at least 5 or 6 different ways. Or B, maybe Taylor Swift didn't sit down and autograph 10,000 CDs. But that's neither here nor there. I almost certainly shouldn't have brought it up. But here we are. We're going live, and I'm saying stuff I shouldn't say about my shameful embarrassments and about just questioning the righteousness of Taylor Swift. She does have some songs, though, man. She's got, I think kids call them bangers. She's got some bangers. I've heard a couple Taylor Swift songs that I liked. Maybe I've heard more that I didn't care for, but again, I don't think she's aiming for the 37-year-old tattooed folk singer with gray hairs in his beard, and she's doing fine. You should see her Spotify numbers. My God. The only other thing, not the only other thing, but the other thing that happened this week that I thought would be worth mentioning is they released the cause of death for Justin Townes Earl. And frankly, I was hoping that they would. When Justin Townes Earl passed, we talked about it here on the podcast. I was affected by that. I love his music, and I had the chance to play with him and spend some time with him. And but when he passed, everyone just kind of assumed, but knew that it was unfortunately drug related. And it turns out that we were right. And he had done some drugs that were laced with some other drugs, which happens a lot. And it took him quick. And I was really hoping that they would say something, and I was really glad that they did, for a couple reasons. The immediate reason is, if a person dies of something that is gonna kill other people, talking about that out loud could save those other people. You don't know the implications that you could have on someone who's struggling with addiction and loves Justin Townes Earl. If you come out and you say, listen, this guy that you love that seemed otherworldly, that seemed larger than life, he died young because he was doing what you're doing. And if it can get him, it's going to get you. And lives might be saved by talking about this, which means it's worth doing. And then the bigger reason that affects us all is that we are all going to die. And everybody we know is going to die. And I think mostly people are afraid of that, or at least unenthused by it. And I wonder if part of that is because through our whole lives, when other people die, we don't really talk about it that much. So we don't ever get used to it. You hear people say that the elderly have this completely different relationship with death that is much more peaceful because all their friends are dying around them, and they know that they're closer to death, and they have to have a different relationship with it. And I think we could all do that. I think every time we experience death, we should really experience it, and we should talk about it and think about it and let it become part of our relationship with this thing that will happen to us all. I think one of the reasons we don't talk about other people's passings the way maybe we could or maybe we should is because it's very close to talking about ours, and we don't want to talk about ours. But there's a lot of pros that come out of talking about your death and thinking about your death and asking yourself if you're prepared for it. I heard someone say that they try to live their life in a way that if the plane crashed tomorrow, they could at least say, well, made a good effort. Maybe you didn't do everything you wanted to do, but you had a heck of a time trying. And I think that's a wise way to live. And it's a lot easier to get there if you sort of embrace the omnipresence of death and the fact that from whatever distance, you have experienced it, or you've had the opportunity to experience it, and maybe you've turned that opportunity away. Maybe if an artist we love dies, maybe that's their last gift to us, a chance to really think about and talk about death. You know, in a world where they've given us the chance to think and talk about so many other things like love and loss and, you know, or maybe not, I don't know. There's all kinds of embarrassing ways to die that you probably wouldn't want on Facebook, but it's just something to think about, I think. And maybe that's all this podcast is, things to think about, or things I did that are embarrassing. Also, you know, back to the Spotify thing, there's a smart way to use Spotify as an artist, and there's an ethical way to use it as a fan. And if people, you know, people want to hate Spotify, but the fact is, the problem is that people use it the way that they use it. Spotify could exist, and if people only used it as a mobile music device to listen to music that they have otherwise paid for, that's how I use it. I buy vinyl records, or I buy CDs, or even I paid for a few downloads this weekend because it was the only way to get them. But then I will listen to it on Spotify a lot of the time in the car. And I think it's another tricky thing that humanity's doing, that like, the problem is kind of what Spotify is doing, but it's mostly that we're going along. You know, Spotify offered this thing that was free and had the potential to destroy music as we know it. And people should have gone like, no way, man, I love music and I love supporting independent artists, and I'm not going to do that. But instead they were seduced by the convenience and the low price, and now the last trick they've pulled, or that you know, our humanity has pulled on us, is that we're not going to blame ourselves, and we're not going to blame our friends. We're going to blame a CEO of a corporation that can't be affected by our rage, and that we're never going to encounter, you know. But I would encourage you to use Spotify in as much as it serves you and is convenient. But if you find some music that you love and that means something to you, it will feel good to pay for it, and it will feel like it's yours. And the way technology changes, I heard a story that a bunch of people had bought stuff on iTunes, and now that iTunes is over, they don't technically own that stuff anymore. Like, it's just going to go away. And it turns out they were just leasing it. And the thing I like is that the CEO of Google is never going to come in here and say, give me those records back. You know, we're here for the guitars. You were really just borrowing them. So if you love something, pay for it and support the people making it so they can make some more. Speaking of, I put out an EP last week, and I'll drop a link for it. It's called Even If. I'm tremendously proud of it. And I have played, there's 5 songs, and I've played 3 of them for you already, and I'm going to play a 4th one for you now. It's called No Time at All. And I wrote it during quarantine. I mean, we're still in COVID living. We're on day 267 as I record this. It'll be 269 as you watch it. And there was a period of time early on where there was nothing going on because we were quarantined. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't doing anything. But I just felt frazzled. I felt rushed and hurried. And I know now that that was sort of the experiencing of kind of a low-level simmering anxiety. Not a low level, but like a beneath the surface anxiety. So I wrote this song about it. And then a bunch of other stuff found its way into the song. Including, at this same time, there was this sort of debate going on out in the world. Some people were saying like, I'm going to use this time. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to make stuff. I'm going to finally read those books. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to learn how to cook. I'm going to blah, 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 blah. And then other people were going, I'm not going to do anything, and you shouldn't have to do anything. This is hard enough. You should just relax and take care of yourself. And both of those sound pretty good to me. My concern was, are these informed decisions people are making? Like, the people that are saying like, I'm going to put the pedal to the metal and I'm just going to go get it. Are those people really being aware of, like, you could be adding stress to an already stressed life, and that could cause you some problems, which in the long run could slow you down. If you're debilitated at some point by anxiety, you're not doing anything. It might be better to go slow and take your time and consistently be able to function. Also, are the people that are like, I'm gonna put my feet up, I'm gonna put some cucumbers on my eyes for some reason. Is it cucumbers? I think so. Or zucchinis? What do people put on their eyes for no reason? I don't understand why you would put a vegetable on your eye. And why that one? Why not tomatoes? Because the juices? I'm sorry. That's how my brain works. Sometimes the hamster falls off the wheel. But those people that are like, I'm just going to take it easy, are they being conscious of the fact that, like, whether we like it or not, there is a day in the future where you will not be here anymore? And maybe in the minute right before the moment that you're gone, you will think back and, like, did I spend too much time watching The Office and not enough time writing my songs or going for a run or wrestling with my kid or painting, that kind of thing. I think you can spend your days in any variety of way, and they could be fine. You could relax, and that's great. You could work, and that's great. I hope that people, and it found its way into this song, that, like, you don't have forever. You don't have limitless days. So when you work yourself to the bone and you're not enjoying your time here, maybe that's wasted time. And when you don't do anything because you're just, I'm just going to breathe and take care of myself, maybe that's wasted time. Maybe both of those things are necessary in their own amounts. And I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I'm here to encourage honest, informed decisions. If you're taking a day to yourself to just relax because you need it, and you have decided, like, I understand that I only have a few thousand days here, and this is how I want to spend one of them, that's awesome. And if you decide I'm gonna just go crazy hard right now, I'm gonna work my ass off, that's good too. Just don't fool yourself into thinking you have forever, and don't fool yourself into thinking that you have to do everything right now. Anyways, here's the song. It's called No Time at All, from my recently released EP, which is called Even If. Well, I ain't left my house in weeks, but I feel like I ain't got no time at all. I ain't been seeing friends, I ain't been making plans. I feel like I ain't got no time at all. I feel like I ain't got no time at all. Well, I've got some work I mean to do, and I know that I ain't got much time at all. There's always one more tune, one more show to get to. I know that I ain't got much time at all. I know I ain't got much time at all. The open road only gets shorter as you go. You're moving towards some final day you can't possibly know. So let's go. It feels like a lifetime now, but our time will be gone in no time at all. We're born into this world to be returned back to the dirt, and our time will be gone in no time at all. Our time will be gone in no time at all. The open road only gets shorter as you go. You're moving towards some final day you can't possibly know. So let's go. Well, we're in some hard times now, but hard times will be gone in no time at all. There were bad days in the past that you only see when you're looking back. Hard times will be gone in no time at all. Hard times will be gone in no time at all. All right. That last verse was sort of my version of a tradition in old time music, where I can't see the future. I don't know that hard times will be gone in no time at all. And I know that if they are gone, they'll be coming back. But there's this wonderful tradition in folk and bluegrass and spiritual music and even, you know, R&B and soul music of it's aspirational. It's what you're really saying is, I'm hoping hard times will be gone soon, and even if they won't be, for the time that it takes to sing this verse, I'm gonna believe that they'll be gone soon. But for the record, I can't see the future, so don't come suing the Hey Everybody podcast when hard times don't disappear soon. Let's do some recommendations. Bam. This record and band are called Spirit Family Reunion. I've heard them refer to their own music as open door gospel, I think. It's basically gospel spiritual music with the religious component subtracted. But you get all the hope and all the, you know, put your hands together, and I love it. And they do it in the context of like an old time string band, but it's very celebratory and very kind of throw away your worries, everything's going to be good. And sometimes you need that. There's a song on here called It Does Not Bother Me. Highly recommend. That's aspirational too, to just not be bothered and be unaffected. Number 2. This gentleman is named John Craigie, and this record is called No Rain, No Rose. I played a pair of shows with a band called Them Cooley Boys from the Eau Claire area, and they're phenomenal. I was very happy to get to know them and play some shows with them, and I'm a big fan of their music. But after the second show, separately, 2 different members of that band said, "Hey man, you ever heard this John Craigie guy?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Your show kind of reminds me of John Craigie." So now there's pressure, right? Like, you better be good. And it turns out it's one of the nicest compliments I've ever received. He's terrific. He has a live record called Opening for Steinbeck that opens with a song called Dissecting the Bird that is probably one of the best songs I've ever heard in my entire life. His live show is very funny, and this is a studio album that I like quite a bit. Check out a song called All the Salt. He's doing a kind of folky singer-songwriter thing, but he puts a lot of humor and a lot of hope, and sort of in the tradition of like a John Prine. And finally, if you don't like folk music, you don't like bluegrass music, listen to Cancer Bats. They're a metal band from Canada. I own all their records because they rip. This record is called Hail Destroyer, and if you like riffs and headbanging and punching the roof of your car when the chorus kicks in, listen to Cancer Bats. It's heavy and it rules. There you go. There you go. It's all available on Spotify. Let's get their numbers up so they don't have to have an existential crisis at the end of next year. In the meantime, if you are listening to my stuff, I appreciate it. If you're watching this podcast, I appreciate it. If you're sharing it with your friends, I really appreciate it. If you're buying music or donating to the podcast, it means the whole goddamn world to me. Thank you. I appreciate it. I couldn't do it without the support, but I would keep doing it anyways. I would just die young and sick. Heck, I love you guys. I hope you're well. I hope you're not comparing yourself to other people. And I hope the ever-present specter of death is motivating you to love people well and do the things you want to do while you can do them. All right, we'll talk soon.